Hello everyone. Today we're looking at Ukraine, Israel, and other conflicts of interest. As of this recording, it is October 26, 2023. Now, the front line hasn't been updated since we looked at it yesterday, so we're just going to do a quick recap over here. First of all, at Avdiivka, we can see that the front line has been relatively consolidated out here, and just more so it seems that it's been a bit more clarified as to what it looks like out here. And again, Orlyanka, really quick, just the Russians pushing a bit in this direction in what looks to be, I believe it was Kharkiv, yeah, the Kharkiv area. And just another recap in the Verbova, Robotyne direction, as we can see, just seems to be just more frontline clarification. And it was around here in Orlyanka, yeah, right here. Just a bit more frontline clarification out here. So just taking another recap of yesterday, we didn't get to talk about combat engagements, but yesterday there were 78 combat engagements, which is a step up from what we are kind of seeing as the past couple days. But if we look here, if we scroll up a bit as to what's been going on today, 45 combat engagements. So it really seems to be rather all over the place, hovering around 40, 50, and some days 70 to 80. So it just, is further highlighting perhaps Russia taking into account its equipment losses that have been going on, perhaps being a bit more cautious as to these next few days, and most of these attacks either, um, perhaps, considering yesterday, either Ukraine being secretive, but what I'm starting to think is that it was just a reporting delay. Um, so these attacks in particular, perhaps it's another reporting delay, or it's just Russia is really seeming to concentrate in the Bakhmut area and Avdiivka direction, as well as the Kharkiv, as we saw as well earlier today, of where their gains had been taken as well. So really quick here, being reported by ISW, the Kremlin's support for ultranationalist Russian Orthodox religion appears to be complicating relations with Ramzan Kadyrov. So it's just interesting to see how this, religious ideology of Russian Orthodoxy that Putin has really been trying to promote, that they're the bastion of true Orthodox in Orthodox Christianity and Christianity in general in the world. The whatever it is he's saying about woke Western leftism or whatever it is he says, uh, and trying to go back to Russian Orthodox traditionalist values, and yet there are also the as we see Chechen Muslim constituencies, uh, also the Kremlin trying to keep their favor, as we know in the past with the previous Chechen wars. Obviously, Russia does not want another, Chechnya, as they already have their hands full with Ukraine. So just seeing this kind of balance between the two ideologies, which, as we know, haven't really gotten along in the past. Um, just the Kremlin trying to keep them together while also trying to rally support for their war. So other than that, nothing else about Ukraine really caught my eye today. Just a quick thing here being reported apparently by Russian Telegram channels of ATACMS hitting like I believe 3 S-400 systems. So yeah, as we can see, that'll leave a mark out there. Um, so it's just some footage that I thought that I would share here, especially if it's being reported by Russian Telegram channels, which, perhaps in some ways are a bit more reliable if they are reporting their own losses. So yeah, I just wanted to share that there. So now pivoting over here to Israel-Palestine, just, the usual bombings, missile attacks, and, hostilities with Hezbollah, and West Bank being a bit more calm, like we've been talking about. Something that really caught my eye here, 74 trucks have gone into Gaza with humanitarian aid in the last 24 hours. Although, as we know, I believe I read it somewhere that Gaza would need around 100 trucks a day to sustain the amount of people that are within it, at least the amount of aid that it would need to sustain them. So at least it seems that it's getting closer to the number of what would be sustainable and helpful to the people out there. But other than that, there doesn't seem to be really anything too of note on here that we won't talk about in a second here. So taking a quick look here at more of what ISW is reporting, more attacks targeting U.S. forces in Syria, and it just seems to be further along what ISW seems to be reporting as the axis of resistance, what Iran is calling its, I guess, um, allies in trying to, what they are saying, deter Israel from destroying Hamas, prevent Israel from destroying Hamas, and deter the U.S. from supporting Israel. Since, as we know, something else I kind of wanted to talk about a bit was that, as we know, the U.S. is or has experienced a bit of um, what you would call like Middle East and terrorist kind of burnout, I guess. I know there's probably a more proper phrase for it, but the only way the way I'm trying to convey it in that way is that, you know, more Americans don't want to go back into the Middle East considering how long we've been there already, right? I mean, there are people talking about, the war on terror, and there are people serving in the war on terror who were born after the war on terror started, So just keeping that in mind that a lot of people are just don't really probably want to get involved in this again. So in terms of deterrence by Iran, I feel that it's probably relatively effective in not wanting the US to escalate or try and incorporate itself into the conflict. But that doesn't mean that, in terms of, yeah, it's probably deterring boots on the ground in the Middle East, but that doesn't mean there aren't going to be missile strikes or airstrikes in, places that places that are harming the US's allies, So that's just my take on that in this situation. So one last story here that seems to link both Ukraine and Israel, Hamas, is that Hamas delegation has arrived in Moscow for talks and to discuss releasing of foreign hostages, including Russian citizens. Russia blaming the U.S. for the crisis, of course. Crime supported by the West. So Israel condemning the meeting. So it's just interesting to look at it that of course, these two conflicts are linked, like we talked about yesterday. But even so, Russia trying to put its own stake in the conflict, perhaps to capitalize on the Ukraine war in some way, trying to give itself a moral high ground, or downplay the West, as we saw, as they're the evil ones, we're the ones in the right, and just perhaps trying to uh, rally a bit more for, of course, the Ukraine war. So, in terms of some of the footage out here in Israel, one of the things I want to take a look at were the raids that were happening out there in the Gaza Strip. So these are just vehicles that were crossing in, as we can see, industrial equipment, bulldozers, as well as some tanks that rolled into the Gaza Strip in just what is reported to be overnight raids. And as we've been talking about, that what is there going to be a full-scale ground invasion of Gaza at all? Well, even though Israel has been stating that there will be, and they're trying to destroy Hamas completely and fully. So either these are like preparatory and just staging assaults for what is to come. But I just wanted to share this with you that there is more going on the ground than what people are perhaps seeing of just bombings, shellings, and missile attacks. So one last story here outside of Ukraine, Israel. The RSF attacking Sudan armed forces in Niala over the past 2 days. And, as we can see from this map over here of the RSF, just seemingly, from what I've also seen, some footage that I'm not comfortable sharing of just complete frontal assaults by the RSF into these positions. And something else that really caught my eye was latest findings suggest renewed offensive by RSF ahead of ceasefire talks to resume in Saudi Arabia. So, just something to keep an eye on for the future. And how this really ties back to Ukraine is that, as we have heard that Wagner possibly has ties in Sudan. So what this amounts to, we don't really know. We just know that perhaps they had some like ties to Sudanese gold and whatnot, and so that's possibly how they're funding themselves. But with Prigozhin not really in the picture, what is that amounting to? We don't really have that information, but it's just something to keep an eye on. Now, other than that, there wasn't really anything else I wanted to talk about today. So, if you have any questions or anything you want me to talk about, anything you want me to cover, perhaps you want me to cover Sudan a bit more consistently in the future, I would be happy to, or any other conflict that I'm not really looking at, I'll take a look at, and we can cover it in future videos. But other than that, thanks for watching.